Hi, everybody. I was hoping to get this to you sooner, but better late than never. Happy 2022. Whenever a new year starts, the first thing people think about is setting goals for the year. And even though I am huge on setting goals, but actually throughout the entire year, but I'm really big on setting goals. However, I felt that something that's really much more important and that I feel needs to be tackled first before you even think about setting your goals is fear. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Because the primary reason we don't achieve what we want in life is because of fear. Across the board, it's the single most common reason that people don't achieve their goals. And it doesn't matter if your goals are material, spiritual, emotional, intellectual, whatever it is that you want out of life, all growth requires change. Change requires us to move into the unknown, and the unknown triggers fear. So if we understand it, I think it makes it a lot easier to kind of tackle. So fear is a primitive fight or flight reflex, and it is hardwired in our brains. It's a primitive survival reflex. Can't get rid of it. Everybody has it. It's been in there for centuries. And it served us really well when we needed to outrun saber-toothed tigers and when we needed to survive against predators and the elements where we were basically living in constant danger for our lives, right? We needed that response in order to survive. But now, fast forward to the present, and we no longer have these dangers, but our brain is still wired the same way, and it can't tell the difference between an imminent threat, like something that potentially could take our life, or a psychological stressor, something we think about that triggers that fear. So all we have to do is think about something that triggers our fear, and we'll get the exact same response, right? So whether you can't find enough food and you could potentially starve, or you're getting ready to go in the ring with your dog to compete, the physiological response is going to be the same. Fear is fear to the body. It doesn't differentiate, it just responds. So when we think about undergoing change, and when we actually do undergo change, we're moving from the known, which is safe, to the unknown, which is not safe, which triggers the flight and fight response. Why? Because if we're moving into the unknown, we need to determine whether we are going to be safe, right? So if you're living millions of years ago and you leave your cave and move into another area, you need to be careful, right? You need to make sure that you're safe, because if you just aimlessly wander, something might eat you. So if we move into the unknown, we have to find out if it's safe, and our brain operates the same way. So if you are thinking about changing something in your life, you're moving into the unknown, your body is going to say, uh-oh, danger, we better make sure we're going to be safe, right? So what does our brain do? It focuses on everything that could go wrong so that we can be prepared, right? Our brain scans for any and all reasons why things could go awry if we move off of our known path and step into the unknown. And we focus on those things, and our brain repeats them over and over, right? Because we have to be sure we're going to be safe. Our brain does not scan equally for all the reasons moving into the unknown could benefit us, all the things that could go better, all the positive ways it could change our lives. It does not do that. That is not how we are wired, right? So not only is our brain scanning for the negative and all the things that all the reasons this could not go well and all the bad things that could possibly happen, at the same time, we're assailed by a host of really uncomfortable physical sensations. So we're going to get hit physically with all the physiological responses that go along with fight or flight. So chest pain, increased heart rate, sweating, stomach ache, shaking, feeling anxious, feeling nervous, feeling afraid. And fear can be paralyzing, right? Fear narrows our vision. It limits what we see. It limits what we can achieve. It keeps us in a lane. We are only focusing on what could go wrong. And then we're like, oh boy, better not go there. It's much safer over here. Here is the known. I know what can or can't go wrong. I feel safe here. So if that goes unchecked, what do? We either freeze and do nothing, or we fully move away from the unknown and cling even more tightly to the known, to the way our life currently is. And it doesn't help that everybody is wired this way. So you say, I want to do this thing that's a little scary and it's the unknown and I would need to change in order for that to happen. And you mention it to a friend or a family member or a coworker. And what do? They automatically have the same response as if they were making that decision themselves, which is they're going to look for all the dangers and point out all the reasons it won't work, right? And then that just confirms your fears. And so why do other people do that? Because they don't want to step outside their comfort zone. They're not comfortable doing it, and so they don't think anyone else should either, right? With some people, it triggers a fear they might have, and so they're going to say that same thing to you. And then other people are going to say things to you that confirm your fears because they're jealous. They are not comfortable moving outside their zone. They are afraid of change. So therefore, they don't want you to do it either, because especially not if you do it and it could turn out well, right? And for other people, if you change, it is going to change your relationship to them, right? So if I have an employee and she decides that she would like to pursue another goal, or if she would like to go to college, that means she's going to leave me. Well, I don't want her to leave me. I want her to stay. So I'm going to tell her, oh, no, you don't want to do that. That's not safe, right? Or if you have a certain relationship with a friend or a family member and you change, then they might feel like they're going to get left behind. So they're going to tell you, no, don't go do that, right? And as if all that wasn't hard enough, here's another fun fact. Studies show that people would rather endure physical pain than be afraid, which is really crazy if you think about it, because fear, it's just a feeling, right? But it's a really debilitating feeling because the origin of fear is survival. And wanting to survive is a pretty gosh darn powerful motivator, right? So at the end of the day, with all of these factors, you're going to end up with the same result. No risk taken, no change occurs, no growth occurs. So if you just understand this, it is critical. It's huge, right? Because if you understand it, you can work to consciously override it. And you can be the voice of reason. You can be logical. You can make sure to purposefully and mindfully look for just as many reasons, if not more, as to why or how this change could benefit you. What are the things you really need to do when you think about a goal you want to achieve? right, is not just think about the goal on a cerebral level. Yes, you do need to do that. And I'm not saying don't weigh the cons to the pros, but you have to very mindfully sit down and say, why do I want this? Right? How is this going to change my life? How is this going to make my life better? And then you really need to spend some time thinking about how you would feel and feeling those feelings. So when I envision a goal, I don't just picture the end goal in and of itself. I also tie in how I'm going to feel. So I'll give you an example. When I was years ago, first started working on this, and I visualized winning the NOC with Tyler. While I was visualizing it, I would feel how I would feel, how excited I would feel, how proud, how thrilled. And I felt it. I would get choked up. I would get teary-eyed. I would get goosebumps. I would get excited. I would picture exactly how it would feel to stand there and have our number and his name called out when we won. So I tied in that emotion because that's super powerful. And the more you practice that, the more that emotion is going to override the emotion of fear. So when I write my goals on goal cards and I read them, and I have worked out logically why I want this to happen, and I then every time I read the goal, I take a minute and think about how it's going to feel. So if I have the goal in my car and I look at it and I'm driving, I think about how I am going to feel when I have achieved this goal. And I practice that every day, and that's super, super, super powerful. So visualizing it is really important and it works really well. And then the more you practice it, the easier it's going to get. So the first time you work on pushing through fear, which yes, it is uncomfortable, and it is going to be uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. And the first time is always going to be the hardest. It never completely goes away. So when I think about a new goal or a change, and I start implementing it, I still feel fear. I still have that feeling that's uncomfortable, right? But now I know it is just a feeling. And I think back to all the other times in my life when I felt fear and it's caused change, and how every single time it was so much better after I went through that process. My life improved dramatically. So it's only by pushing through and coming out the other side that it happens. The more you do it, though, the easier it gets. So it's not as hard for me anymore to push through fear because I look back at all the times I've done it. I remind myself, see, that worked out so well for you in the end, even when you didn't think it was going to. And so then I take comfort in that, and I know there's a positive kind of track record with that, and it makes it easier to push through and do it again, right? So it's really just like working out and strengthening a muscle. The more you do it, the easier it gets. And at a certain point, you start to realize that fear is actually a good thing. So now whenever I feel fear, I'm kind of like, okay, this is good. It means I'm hitting an edge. I'm hitting something here that I really need to work on. Something that's important for me to push through, because if I come out the other side, I'm going to be better for it, right? It means that you're growing and you're changing. And if without change, you're stagnant. You're safe, yes, but nothing's ever going to get better. You're not going to achieve any big goals. You're not going to have any growth financially, spiritually, emotionally. You're just going to be stagnant. You're not going to evolve, and you're not going to get the things in life that really bring you true joy and happiness. So when I go to do something and I feel fear, what I do now is I really want to get to the bottom of it. What is the root cause? So if I say I want to buy a business, change my job, set a financial goal. And I feel fear about that. The obvious fears are, well, if I quit my job, I might not find another job. Or if I find the other job, I might not make as much money. Those are surface fears, okay? You need to really dig down. Just sit with it a while, think about it, and dig down. What is the root cause of the fear? Usually it's something like we don't feel we're good enough, right? We don't feel like we deserve it. So we feel like we're not worthy. Those are the real reasons that we need to explore and tackle and debunk. So, so what I'll do is, for example, okay, so what are one of my goals that I'm looking at? All right, so one of my goals is I feel like I've changed a lot, emotionally and in terms of just how I want to live my day-to-day life. And that means that, some people in my life may not be in alignment with that. And it also means that I'd like to have more people in my life that are more in line with that, right? So that means I have to make some decisions, right? I have to, every time I have an interaction with someone, I have to say to myself, is this a positive situation? Is this something that's going to help me be where I want to be now and help me evolve, right? Because I want to continue to evolve and grow. So so recently there was a person that kind of wasn't in line with that. And when I thought about extricating myself from that relationship, I got afraid. So I said, well, what is at the bottom of that fear? And at the bottom of that fear was that I would end up alone and no one would love me, right? Which is my fear of being unlovable. So that's good. That's something that's really important that I really need to tackle and work on. So when I feel that feeling of fear, I go, okay, this is bringing this up. I need to sit with this. I need to work through this, so that I can get to the other side of that. All right. So I'm just going to give you some examples of some situations in my life where I pushed through fear and I came out on the other side. So when I was many, many years ago, when I was getting divorced, I lived in a house. It has like 1.25 acres. It was a really old house. My ex-husband was pretty handy. He had started renovating it, got about halfway through. And so we were getting divorced and we had to split our assets, right? So the safer choice for me was to have us sell the house, take my half, downsize, move into a condo, except I had 2 dogs at the time. And one of the primary reasons I had liked this house in the first place was not because of the house, is because it had the property and land behind it, etc., etc. So that meant I would have to refinance, buy my ex-husband out. So carry that financial burden on my own. And I would have to care for this large piece of property that was a lot of work, and a house that was really old and half renovated. So bottom line is, I thought about it and I was like, I want to try it because I don't want my dogs to live in a condo. I want them to have property to run around on. Literally at that time in my life, there was not one single person that thought this was a good idea. No one thought I should do it. Everyone gave me tons of reasons why I should sell the house and move into a condo. My mother at the time went so far as to say she was helping me and got a financial planner who sat down with me. And in hindsight, I realized that she put him up to it. And sat down and proceeded to show me financially why I could not afford to stay in the house. Needless to say, I was afraid. However, the more I just kept thinking about it and thinking about it. And I was like, you know what? I want to give it a try. If it doesn't work out, I can always sell it and move into a condo. But I want to at least try it. So I'll never forget the day that I went to the mortgage company where I was going to refinance so I could, because I needed to pay a certain amount of the money but I needed to buy my ex-husband out. And I went in to sign all the paperwork, and they weren't quite ready yet. So I went to the restroom, and I remember standing at the sink looking at myself, and I, for real, thought I literally physically felt like I was going to pass out. And I remember looking at myself and telling myself to breathe and to just not think about it. Just go in there, sign the papers, move on. So that's what I did. And long story short, it all worked out. I handled it financially. I handled it physically. I learned how to take care of the house. And it was one of the best choices I ever made. I'm still in the house. It's a beautiful spot. My dogs love it. I have space to train. And I've always been super happy here. So, it was a really good decision for me. And so many things have happened like that to me. When my home life was a disaster, so at some point I put myself through secretarial school. Can you believe there was such a thing? I was working at a law firm. I didn't even know you could go back to college. And at some point, the lawyers there were amazing, and they were actually pushing me to go to college at night. And I was terrified. I didn't think I was smart enough. I was a nervous wreck at the time. I was like, how do I sign up? What do I do? Oh, God. But they kept talking to me about it. And then I said, okay, I'm just going to take like 2 classes. And if I don't like it, I just won't do it anymore. And so that led to my getting my college degree and becoming a physical therapist and so on. It's happened every time I've had to change jobs. It's happened when I bought my business. I was terrified. I thought I was going to be physically sick. But again, I was able to logically talk myself through it, and make the decision that the only way I was going to get where I wanted is if I just did it and pushed through, and it worked out. So I've had tons more examples like that. I think if you ask other people about their story, you will see that anything they achieved it didn't happen because they're talented or because they just got lucky. It was a bunch of risks they took, a bunch of chances they took, a bunch of gambles they took, a bunch of times where they were afraid and they just took a chance, and they failed a lot. I don't know why, but I wanted to have my own business. I did all the groundwork, including like taking courses and even registering names for 4 or 5 different businesses, none of which took off before I ended up with my doggy rehab business. So I think if you ask people and hear their story over and over again, it will give you courage and encouragement. I'm pretty obsessed with, I love reading about, watching movies about, watching YouTube videos of people that are successful in very different areas of life. I don't care what they're successful at. I always just like listening to their stories because it's story after story after story of failure, just not giving up, and being willing to face their fears and push through those fears. Okay. Finally, years ago, a therapist, he had this what if game he would do. So we would run through worst case scenarios. So at the time, I was working somewhere as a physical therapist, and I was afraid I was going to lose my job. And he said to me, okay, so what if you lost your job? I'm like, well, I wouldn't make any money. He's like, well, what if you found another job? And we just kept doing what if, right? So if I lost my job, then I would look for another job. And if I found another job, maybe I could even make it would be a better job, or I could make more money. Realistically, at the time, well, I still do. I was a physical therapist. It wasn't like there weren't jobs out there, right? It's just that we picture the worst case scenario. I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to be destitute. I won't be able to pay my mortgage. I'm going to lose a house. I'm going to have to get rid of my dogs. I'm not going to be able to eat, right? But the truth of the matter is, that's only one path, right? And that's a path based on fear. So look at all your other paths when those scenarios come up. And think to yourself, the vast majority of people are unhappy in some area of their life. So I can't tell you how many people don't like their job. And if you ask them, well, why don't you take another job? They have all these reasons. But the real reason is they're afraid and they're not willing to take a chance. And so they spend their whole life working towards retirement, right? And then, because then magically they're going to be happy. Think about how many years of your life you're spending doing something that doesn't make you happy, right? Just because you're afraid to take a chance. So you don't want to spend your life settling. You don't want to spend your life having regrets. You don't want to spend your life living in fear. You want to think about taking some chances. And initially, if you've never taken a chance, start with something really small. And when you see that you can manage it and you can work through it, you can build on that. Whew. All right. If you have questions, comments, thoughts, put them on the Facebook page and I will answer them. If I get enough questions, I will put together another short video clip answering them happily. I think that if you have a question, but you think you're going to be embarrassed or feel stupid, I guarantee you other people have a question, and this is a good place to work on pushing past your fear and posting your question there. If you have a burning question and you really are not comfortable with people seeing you ask that question, then email me the question to my email address. Don't Facebook Messenger it because I don't check it a lot and I lose track of it. So just send me an email. And I'm more than happy to help everybody, to answer any questions. And if you have an experience where you had fear and you pushed through, like a little success story, please share that. I think it's just so helpful for people, right? Especially early on in my life, I had no mentors, no one to help me, no one to kind of guide me. And had I had that, it would have made life so much easier. So I think the more people see that other people have been afraid and are afraid and just push through anyway, and that they come out the other side and they're okay, the more inspiring it'll be and the more it'll help them out. All right. That's it. Thank you. Bye.